We all know how much Lewis Hamilton loves the world of car racing, and the world of Formula One in particular, and rightly so. He has always been an amazing driver, with or without competitive cars, and he's shown us many times what he's capable of doing. So it isn't really a big surprise to anyone that he signed a contract again with Mercedes to race for another 2 years. But things might be going a bit differently this time. This time he's signing to be an icon? Well, allow me to explain myself. Hamilton has always been keen on the idea of not racing after 40 in Formula One. He's always told the media that he believed that he would continue racing until he felt like he wasn't competitive and always improving upon himself. He said that whenever things looked like he wasn't in the right shape to race anymore, he would retire. But now, things are going to look a bit differently. The last interviews where he said that he's expected to retire at 40 were in 2021. But now we're in 2022 and he started telling the media that he doesn't feel that bad about racing at 40 or over. This big change was done for a series of reasons. For one, because he's seen Alonso's performance all year long. He is stimulated in continuing racing, seeing how much better the Alpine driver is than most of the young upcoming talents on the grid. And probably, even though this is just speculation, he feels like if someone like his ex-teammate can make such a big turning point in F1 by racing at his age, he mustn't be anything less. We know how much the rivalry between these two has affected their career choices. And even though nobody said anything about this kind of influence on their decision, it is probable that a small part of Hamilton's brain just wants to be the best in all fields while still being humble and respectful. So he probably subconsciously wants to be the oldest driver on the grid. The second reason he might be staying in the sport even after 40 is that he feels like he's still doing great. Putting his performance at the beginning of the season aside, as it was mostly the car's fault and not the driver's, after the summer break he has managed a podium in pretty much every race, and a well-deserved one. This more than likely makes him think that he's still one of the most competitive drivers on the grid, making him want to race for even more time. He knows that if he keeps making sacrifices, he will be paid off. But what about the other physical aspects? Don't people get worse at hard disciplines like racing over time? Well, kind of. First of all, it isn't really something that happens overnight. Drivers all get older at a constant rate, some faster than others. This doesn't mean that if any of the current F1 drivers, except Latifi, are put in a competitive car while they're older than the younger talents, they won't be competitive. With time comes experience, so most drivers get better over time. Of course, there is a physical limit, but it's safe to say that they know how to stay away from it. For example, most of the older drivers have trained their necks so much that it now isn't a matter of getting into the right shape, but rather just remaining in it. Yes, reaction time worsens over the years, but still, racing is their job, so we can expect them to train in such a way that doesn't make them slower than their competitors. Going back to Hamilton, he has shown us many times how great of a driver he is despite his fairly high age. Just looking at his starts this season, we can notice why he is a world-class driver. At 37, with most of the young talents on the grid being 25, he still managed at pretty much every race an amazing start, thanks to his blazing fast reaction times and accuracy with the car. As you can notice, physical principles that may apply to normal people don't often work with athletes of that caliber. This doesn't mean that they are superhuman, but just that they know how much to train to remain in perfect shape at every race weekend. Once again, looking at Hamilton's contract, we can see how much Mercedes believes in him. But is this true? Well, it depends what you're looking over while analysing the situation. On one hand, yes, Mercedes truly believes in him. They know he's a competitive driver and that if they gave him a great car that he gets along with, he will get back to fighting for the top step of the championship, beating records that were never thought to be broken. He is in perfect mental and physical state, so there's nothing to worry about on that topic either. On the other hand, we know that once Mercedes sees that a driver's performance is slowly starting to decrease over time, they like to cut ropes, giving 1-year contracts until there's nothing left in that driver. We've seen them do the big error of making Michael Schumacher sign a 3-year contract just to be outperformed by his younger teammate Nico Rosberg. So it's not such a big surprise that they now use this strategy whenever they can. They've done this with Valtteri Bottas every single year from 2017 to 2021, and it's probably part of the reason he left the team. He has stated several times during interviews that even if Mercedes offered him a new contract, if it was just for another year, he wouldn't have accepted it. This is probably what Mercedes is trying to avoid here, which might be the reason they're giving Lewis the 2 years contract. It isn't short enough for Lewis to be unsure of his future in the sport, but it isn't long enough for him to become a snail on the track while still getting a car to race with. But what they've done now is different in other ways too. Mercedes now has a backup plan for what will happen if, due to an extraordinary reason, Lewis suddenly becomes less competitive. He would still be the status of the Mercedes team and its dominance, just like Schumacher with Ferrari throughout 2005 and 2006, when Alonso won its 2 championships and when Ferrari suddenly didn't deliver anymore the expected results. Lewis would then be used as a way to attract sponsors, get promotional videos done, and maybe even get some of the team's stakes before retiring, meaning he would be part of the Mercedes family for the rest of his life. And we know how much Lewis likes investing, so this will surely be something he would be willing to do. But we know Hamilton not as a person, but as a driver. We know that if he's given a 2 years contract, he will do anything in his power to make the team believe that those 2 years were profitable. He will not stop training, just like he didn't stop in 2022 after an incredibly bad start to his season, his worst in his career probably. Lewis is also incredibly accurate, and it's thanks to his ability to understand what's wrong with the car that improvements are made to it and perfect setups for different tracks are made. Even though Russell outperformed him in the Drivers' Championship, the big step up they did after the summer break wouldn't have been possible without both of them. Russell with his studies of the other front runners on the grid and his ability to make everyone be motivated back at the factory and in the garage, and Lewis with all of his technical knowledge from the years of experience, giving suggestions on what to tweak and what's wrong. So, knowing that Mercedes will probably and hopefully be back at the front next season, at least for the beginning part, is Hamilton being given other chances that he doesn't deserve? Definitely not. He's still a great driver, and we can expect him to remain like that for a long time in the future. He's won the WDC almost every year he raced at Mercedes for, so it makes sense that the team hopes that this year the problem was just the regulation changes. We've seen how much Lewis has adapted to the new car, and if it weren't for a bad first half of the season, he would have probably finished in the top 3. Will we see him race after 40? Who knows? Remember all of the hype there was at Mercedes when Schumacher got back into Formula 1 after almost 4 years of retirement. He himself said that he was looking forward to an 8th World Championship, even though we all know how that ended. Many times the hype of getting a historical driver back into a seat makes us not think clearly about his performance, but this doesn't seem to be the case here. So, will Hamilton race in F1 until he's 40? Is all the hype surrounding him worthless? Let us know with a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe, because at 10,000 subscribers, we're going to try and build the fastest F1 car of all time to see if it will beat anything already made. No, not really, but you should subscribe anyway.